Hello there, hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Machiavelli's Discourses. Today we're continuing Book 2, looking at Chapter 4. The title is Republics Have Taken Three Modes of Expanding. Pardon. So let's go turn to the chapter. Whoever has observed these ancient histories find that republics have taken three modes of expanding. So what are the three modes? One has been that which the ancient Tuscans observed, being a league of several republics together, of which none was more before another in either authority or rank. In acquiring other cities, they made them partners, in a like mode of what the Swiss do in this time, and what the Achaeans and the Attilians did in the Greeks in the ancient times. Okay. So therefore there's the Tuscan way, a confederated way, right? Confederated way. Since the Romans made war with the Tuscans very often, I will expedite in giving knowledge of them, particularly to show better the qualities of this first mode. In Italy, before the Roman Empire, the Tuscans were very powerful by sea and land. Although they had no particular history of their affairs, there is, however, some little memory and some sign of their greatness. So the Tuscans were by sea and land great power. It is known that they sent a colony, which they called Adria, on the upper sea, which was so noble that it gave the name to the sea that Latins still call Adriatic. It is also understood that their arms were obeyed from the Tiber as far as the foot of the mountains that encircle the thick part of Italy. The Alps, right? This is the Alps. Notwithstanding this, 200 years before the Romans grew much strength, the said Tuscans lost their empire of the country called Lombardy today. That province was seized by the French, the Gauls, who moved either by necessity or by the sweetness of the fruit, and were especially of the wine, came into Italy under their dukes. Their dukes, Benevinus. So their dukes, Benevinus, they came in there because they wanted the wine, the fruit, the grapes, the fruits, and especially the wine. Having defeated and expelled those living in the province, they set themselves up in that place. There they built many cities. From the name they held then, they called the province Gaul, and held it until they were subdued by the Romans, right? The Tuscans live thus with that equality and proceeded in expanding in the first mode as was said above, right? There were 12 cities. Among them were Cilsuli, Vili, Anzero, Frescol, Voltara, and the like, and they were governed their empire by way of a league, a circle, right? This is Livy 4:23 and 5:1, right? They could not go beyond Italy with their expansion, and even the great part of Italy remained intact for causes that would be said below. So therefore that's one mode. Another mode is to get partners, but not so much that the rank of command, the seat of empire, and the title of the enterprise does not remain with you, which was observed, which mode was observed by the Romans. So the first mode is this confederation, league motto of everyone being equal. Then the second one is get allies, but you're the more strong, powerful ally. Engage with the second mode is what? Get partners, but not in one way that they will outshine you or be more powerful than you. And the third mode is to get not partners, but direct subjects, as the Spartans and the Athenians did. In other words, they do not get partners, but change the regimes so that the subjects, direct subjects, as this, of these three. In other words, so therefore, one is partners. You get allies, confederation, league. Second is you have a leadership, when you say hegemonic, or stronger, and then the other ones follow you. And then the third one is that you do it through, as he says, but direct subjects. In other words, as the Athenians, of these modes, the last is entirely useless, as we've seen in the two Republic written above, which were not ruined otherwise than by having acquired dominion that they could not keep. In other words, they can change the regimes, but they could not keep them. Okay, they got power, but they were not able to keep it. For taking care of governing cities by violence, especially those accustomed to living freely, is difficult and a laborious thing. And if you're not armed, and if you're not armed with armed and massive with arms, you can neither command nor rule them. To be like that, it is necessary to get partners who aid you and make your city massive with people. So therefore you need partners that will aid you and make you positive. And since these two cities did neither the one nor the other, get people to aid them or to get people, their cities growing big, the mode of their proceeding was useless. So the other three modes, the first is the Tuscan way, the second is the Roman way, and the third way is the Spartan and Athenian way. The third way is useless, he says. Since Rome, which is the example of the second mode, did the one and the other, it therefore rose to much excessive power. Since it was alone and living thus, it was alone to become so powerful. For it got many partners through all Italy, who in many things lived with it under equal laws, and on the other side, as said above, it always reserved for itself the seat of empire and the command of title. Right? So there was Rome. Rome is the second mode, but Rome also did the first two. Rome went back and forth. When they were equal, they worked as equal, but in other words, they did the other one. But they did it so that they always got bigger parts, right? For they had many partners throughout Italy, and they lived, and many lived with it under equal laws. And on the other side, as said, they reserved itself the seat of empire and the title of command. So its partners came to subjugate themselves by their own labors in blood without perceiving it. In other words, they worked hard to, they came to subjugate. The partners of Rome came to, and this is the soci, right? This is the soci that the partners of Rome, they came to be subjugated by it, not by the perception of it, right? For they began to go out of Italy with their armies to reduce kingdoms to provinces, and then get subjects who did not care about being subjects, since they were accustomed to living under kings, and who did not acknowledge a superior other than Rome, since they had Roman governors and had been conquered by armies with the Roman title. In other words, this example, they were conquered. They were used to being under rules of kings and under the rules of they weren't free. They were servile. They were used to being ruled of this. So therefore, They did not care about being subjects, since they were accustomed to living under kings, right, he says. And now they were subject to Roman governors who were conquered by by armies with Roman titles. In this mode, the partners of Rome who were in Italy found themselves in a stroke encircled by Roman subjects and crushed by a very big city, which Rome was. And when they perceived the deception under which they lived, they were not in time to remedy it. So much authority had Rome taken with its external provinces, and so much force that it had found within its breast since had its city very big and very armed. Although the partners conspired against it to revenge their injury, in little time they were losers of that war and worsened their condition, since from partners they too became subjects. So therefore, this is the social wars. This is what, when people talk about Roman Empire history, the social wars, the socii, who were the cities that were at first kind of partners with Rome, through the societas nature of the contracts between Rome and the cities. When they noticed that Rome was getting the upper hand because of the provinces, they rebelled, and it was crushed, the social war, and therefore, and they were now, when they were crushed, they became subjects now. This mode of proceeding, as was said, had been observed by the Romans alone, nor can a republic that wished to expand take another mode, for experience has not shown us any more certain or more true. So therefore, this middle mode, the second mode that the Romans took, not the Confederation mode. The Confederation mode, you can't grow too far. 2. The previously cited mode of leagues, which the Tuscans and the Archeans and the Atalians lived in, and the live today, is the best mode after that of the Romans. Since you cannot expand very much with it, 2 goods follows. One, that it allows you not easily to take a war on your back, and the other, that it keeps that you easily keep as much as you take. In other words, it's 2 things. It doesn't allow you to get too much wars. It does not easily take a war on your back, and 2, that does not allows you to keep what you take. The cause of its inability to expand is its being a republic that is disunited and placed in various seats, which enables them to consult and decide only with difficulty. It also makes them not be desirous of dominating, for since there are many communities to participate in domination, they do not esteem much acquisition as much as one republic alone that hopes to enjoy it entirely. In other words, one republic alone dominating other cities is okay, but 5 or 6 cities, all, ultimately the Confederation they have to agree with each other. It's going to be difficult. Besides this, they govern themselves through a council, and they must be slower in every decision than those who inhabit within one in the same wall. In other words, again, for the circle, within the circle, same circle. Now, again, this is a difference. The assembly, the league will have to agree that all the powerful actors have to council. They need to form a council, and they need to agree. This takes time, and this takes, and it's going to be more difficult than one that has one strong republic controlling other weaker ones. The like mode of proceeding is also seen by experience to have a fixed limit, of which we have no example that shows it may be passed. It is to reach 12 or 14 communities, and then seeks to go further. For having arrived at a rank that seems to enable them to defend themselves from everyone, they seek not to enlarge dominion, both because necessity does not constrain them to have more power, and because they do not see any usefulness in acquisitions for the cause set above. In other words, they can't fight. In other words, there's too many powers, there's too many of them, there's too many powerful stakeholders, and that they will check each other from getting domination in that sense. They're not going to get any more. For they would have to do one of two things. Either they go on getting powers, and this multitude would make for confusion. In other words, they'd get more and more and more partners, and that therefore go on getting partners, and this would create more and more conflict. And make it, in other words, and the council gets bigger and bigger and less responding. It's the participation problem. The more equal partners and things they get, the more do this. That's one problem. Or they would have to get subjects, and since they see differently in this and not much usefulness in holding them, they do not esteem it. So in other words, they would have to either get too big and they would be too burdensome in that structure, or they'd have to get subjects, and since they see difficulty in this, because this would create a problem, they'd be fighting about who's controlling the subjects, and two, that there is not much usefulness, and they don't esteem, there's not usefulness in holding them, and they do not esteem it, in that sense, the holding subjects. Therefore, when they have come to such a number that they seem to live securely, they turn to two things. One is to receive clients and take protectorates, and by these means to obtain money from every part, which they can easily distribute among themselves. So therefore they take protectorates and means, they get money from the protectorates, and then they take the money from every part of the protectorate, which they can then distribute among themselves. The other is to serve in the military for others and take pay from this, and that the prince who pays them for his campaigns, as the Swiss are seen to do today, and as those cited before are read to have done. In other words, their soldiers go out and conquer things for money and pay. In other words, the ambitious men and those things, they will go out and serve other princes for money and for wealth. Titus Livy, as a witness of this, where he says that Philip, a king of Macedon, came to talk with Titus Quintus Flammius and discuss, reasoned, okay, sorry, we keep on getting calls. So Civilis discussed this in accord in the presence of the praetor of the Otilians, right? That Philip came to talk with Quintus Flammius, discussed in accord with in accord between them in presence of the Otilians. When the said praetor came to have words with him, praetor reproved him for his avarice and faithlessness, saying that the Otilians were not ashamed to serve in the military with one and still send their men in the service of the enemy, so that the insignia of the Otilian were often seen in two opposing armies. Right. So this is the Livy 32, chapter 32, 34. Right. So therefore, Philip then gets mad at this, saying, you guys are on both sides. The Otilians, the praetor said to him, no. But then tells you, no. Thus, this mode of proceeding by leagues, therefore, have always been similar and have the similar effects. The mode of getting subjects is seen to have always been weak and to have made small profits. And when they somehow pass beyond the mode, they have soon been ruined. They got too big and they And if and if the mode of making subjects is useless in armed republics, it is very useless in those that are unarmed, as the republics of Italy have seen in our times, and that which the Romans took is known, therefore, to be the true mode, which is so much more wondrous, insomuch as Rome, there is no example of it, and after Rome, there is no one who intimidated it and imitated it. So therefore, again, the Roman example seems to be the first mode seems to have limits, and it doesn't allow to go through it, and it doesn't seem to, and that if they go beyond the limit, it ends up ruining it. So the Roman example is also interesting because no other example imitated it. In other words, as to leagues, only the Swiss and the leagues of Swabia are found to imitate them. As will be said at the time of this matter, so many orders observed by Rome, pertaining to things inside as well as those outside, not only not only imitated, but not held of any account in our present time. Since some are judged not true, others impossible, and some not of purpose and useless in that sense. The Roman examples can't be done because they're not true. Others are just impossible, and others are not of purpose and useless. So much so that since we are in this ignorance, we are prey to whomever has wished to overrun this province. Because the Italians, now you boost the Italian case. In other words, we haven't paid for this. And if the imitations of the Romans seem difficult, that of the ancient Tuscans would seem not seem so. Especially to the present Tuscans. In other words, God. I apologize again. I should, start over, but I don't feel like it because it's just so much done. So in other words, that the current situation is that we can't imitate the Romans, but we could probably imitate the Tuscan approach. But ancient Tuscans would not seem so difficult, especially to the present Tuscans. For if they could not, for the causes said, make an empire like that of Rome, they could acquire power in Italy, that their mode of proceedings conceded them. In other words, conceded them in that sense, that the security in that sense. This was to secure a great time with the highest glory of empire and of arms, and special praise for customs and religion. This power and glory were first diminished by the French and eliminated by the Romans. The church, right? But the first Tuscans, right? Diminished by the Gauls coming in, and then by Romans, and were eliminated so much that although 2,000 years ago the power of the Tuscans was great, at present there's almost no memory of it. This thing has made me think, whence arises this oblivion of things, which will be discussed in the following chapter. So the next chapter will be the question of oblivion. How do you forget? How does one lose things? So the example of the Tuscans leads us to the question of, well, why didn't Tuscans of the present time, but also the ancient time? No. Their power of, in other words, thus they acquired power in Italy, and their mode of proceeding conceded them. This was secure for a great time, but with the highest glory of the empire in arms, right? especially praise for their custom in there, but this power and glory was first undone by the French, the Gauls, and then limited by the Romans, right? And then been forgotten for 2,000 years, he says. So there's no memory of it. So his next chapter, he says, I'm going to think about whence arises the oblivion of things. Okay. So let's stop here. I apologize for the coughing. This is taking longer than I thought I wished. So if you have any comments or questions, please put them below. Hit the like button. Hit the like button so that again this helps. Or share if you liked it. Again, if you liked it a lot, share it. Share it in your social media. Share it with your friends. Share it far and wide. Another thing you can do is if you've not subscribed, please consider subscribing or subscribe. Encourage your friends to subscribe. Encourage friends to come check the channel out and look at the videos we've had. We have lots of videos of things. Machiavelli's Prince already been done. Montesquieu's Spirit of the Laws. All these different things that we've covered. And of course Aristotle we did, and Thucydides we did a while ago. So all these videos are in the playlists. Another thing is if you want to didn't like it, you can always thumbs down it, but say why in the comments, because that's why people can benefit from it. Again, we're doing this for educational purposes and for usefulness of it. So therefore, please, if you have a problem, just say what it is. And this time you can say, "Oh, you cough too much. You were coughing, and this is." You get phone calls and things like that. Okay, mea culpa, mea culpa. Another thing is, if you want to know more about me on social media, you can check out the social media links below. And if you want to, or you want to follow me too, some of the social media links. Another thing you can do is you can want to know more about me as a researcher and a scholar and as an academic, and check out my scholarship and articles and things. You can check out that at the academic social media links listed below that. If you want to do next of all, if you want to help me do what I do, help me. You can do so through, contribute in that sense. You can do so through Subscribestar or Patreon. Or another way you can do is buy one of my books. This is below. The books are available. This below, and then you can order them at your local book. Of course, your bookstore has them. Great. But if not, maybe they'll order for you. But use an online distributor. You can always order things from online distributors like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Book Depository, Libris, so forth and so forth. Or you can order it directly through the publishers. Well, that's it. We'll now look at the next chapter, chapter 5. We'll stay there and have a good day. Take care. Hope I'll go recover a little bit. Take care. Bye-bye.